Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Around the Ballpark podcast. My name is Mike Redmond, alongside my brother Darren Redmond at Redmond's Room. We are live. Tonight is May 1st, 2025, and as always here on Thursday nights now, we are live usually around this time, around 8:30 p.m. So thanks so much for joining us. We see a few of you trickling in on YouTube and X. But first off, I want to welcome Mike Clark to the show. We're going to get to know him in just a few moments, as this will be a pretty heavy Florida Panthers NHL hockey episode. We'll sprinkle in some New York Mets as well. But until we get to that, Darren, if you wouldn't mind sharing a quick word from our sponsors over.
Hey, attention Palm Bay and Fort Pierce. Struggling with tax issues? Whether you're behind on filings, you're dealing with a lien, or just need expert guidance, Nashville Tax Solutions is here to help. Their team knows the ins and outs of tax relief and is ready to fight for you. But don't just take my word for it. Don't take Mike's word for it. Listen to what some clients have shared with us. Things like, hey, Chris Bennett and his team have saved me from a financial nightmare. They're knowledgeable, they're clear, and compassionate. So please, don't let tax troubles keep you up at night. Call 855-627-4829. Visit NashvilleTaxSolutions.com or email info@NashvilleTaxSolutions today. Nashville Tax Solutions, because tax problems deserve real solutions.
Thank you, Darren. And I wanted to just give a shout out again, like I mentioned, to Christopher Bennett and that entire team at Nashville Tax Solutions for supporting us from day one when we were just under 100 subscribers, locking arms with us so early on, and now we are where we're at. So just wanted to say huge shout out, huge thank you to the folks over there at Nashville Tax Solutions. And I'm going to add here too, we're going to get to know our guest Mike here in just a moment. But I do want to share some awesome news that I found out a little bit earlier today. So we now also have access to it'll be coming, the aroundtheballpark.com will be moving forward. So that we will have a website that's going to be kind of created here shortly, and it's going to move forward with some content. We'll have like schedules of upcoming guests and some other fun stuff there. So look out for that. Aroundtheballpark.com is now owned. The domain is now owned by us here at the Around the Ballpark channel. So that is super exciting news. So just wanted to share that. That is cool. Little upgrade. So shout out for that. And so with that said, we want to go ahead and get to know our guest this evening. We've had him in the chat several times, whether we're talking wrestling or baseball or hockey for that matter. But my best friend, Mike Clark, thank you so much for jumping on with us right in the heart of NHL hockey playoff season, Stanley Cup playoffs. So first and foremost, introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do.
Well, first off, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Darren. Thanks for having me tonight.
Thank you.
And I've also got my wife, Ashley, here off camera. I'm from up there where you are, Mike. And, originally 5 years ago, we moved down here to West Palm Beach and started getting into hockey. It's not a big thing over there on the East Coast. We're kind of between both teams, but coming down here, you only have two options. The Marlins aren't it. So it's either the Heat or the Panthers.
That's it. Yep. That is all in that area. And how far of a drive from where the Panthers play from where you live?
About 45 minutes.
About 45 minutes. That's not bad at all.
Throw in rush hour, it's an hour and a half.
Okay. Yeah, I figured. Yeah. Now, so much to dive into. So I want to start here, and then I'll pass it over to Darren to have some follow-up questions. So one thing that you love to do, you are a season ticket holder for the Florida Panthers, which is outstanding. Totally not jealous. But explain to me the difference in the atmosphere of a watch party. So we'll get into the on ice product, and we'll get into all that sort of stuff. But I want to start with the stadium experience. But I want to start with the watch party. What goes into that? How does that look? Like, when do you have to get there? Is it the same people each time? Is it a different venue? Like, walk us through what a watch party kind of is like on for the Panthers.
Yeah, so we've been going to them for the last 3 years. Obviously, not everybody can afford playoff hockey tickets, especially when it comes time for the finals. But so they know that, and they do these watch parties in different parts of the area. And they could be anywhere from one of the restaurants they use is Funky Buddha. They basically clear out the whole restaurant, set up the tables in a certain way, and they'll pack in 200-300 people in there, all Panther fans. Specifically, like the beginning of the series, it started off out in Tampa for the first 2 games. So people would meet at the restaurant. They had the cheerleaders, they had the mascots, they had the lady that does all the hype stuff in the arena. They had the arena announcer. All those folks from the Panthers come to these watch parties and continue to hype it up for everybody that's there.
Okay, so it's a unique experience for when they're on the road versus when they're home. It's same thing. Watch parties still exist, but it's a different vibe, because obviously at that point they're at the arena instead of there, right?
Exactly. Yeah. They've like last night's watch party, they moved over to their practice arena in downtown Fort Lauderdale. So they pick the venue, they put it out there, and they tell everybody where it's going to be. And last night they also had probably a good 200 to 300 people at the practice arena, whether it was sitting down in the rink, with kids ice skating or families ice skating, watching on the Jumbotron, or sitting inside where it's nice and warm around the concession stand and the bar. They had the big screen TVs. Same thing. The cheerleaders were there. The mascots were there. Everybody's having a good time.
That sounds awesome. And Darren, have you been to a similar experience on the hockey level for a watch party?
Well, I'm older than both of you, so yes, because the last time the Rangers won the Cup was '94. But it is an exceptional experience, and in a lot of ways, I enjoyed it better than as you know, I've been humbled. I've been able to go to NFL playoff games, World Series games, both Mets, Yankees playoffs. But I got to tell you, when I went to the Garden to see the Rangers against Vancouver in the Garden, but they're playing in Vancouver. But like Mike so eloquently said, for example, John Amorante used to, before he passed away, used to do the national anthem, and he came out and did the national anthem. They cut the ice in between periods. I mean, you feel like you're there, and you go out, and it's just, and who's there? You know who's there? You two. People that normally can't afford, Stanley Cup tickets, but the vibe was wonderful. And for real hockey fans who are of a certain age, they may remember Pavel Bure had a penalty shot against Mike Richter, and Richter stopped it. And to see that happen at the Garden, I got goosebumps right now. I mean, it's Mike. Am I lying? Right? You just feel the vibe of all the positivity. These are the fans that want these watch parties. It's terrific.
Yeah, not everybody could travel from Sunrise up to Tampa for this first round. So there's got to be somewhere for them to get together, eat, drink, party, do all that stuff that they would be doing in the arena had the game been playing down in Sunrise.
Yeah. Now, what is the vibe like of the away team at a watch party? Because, I don't know. I feel, and this may be completely off the wall here, but I feel if I was a fan of the opposing team, I would feel more comfortable at the arena than I would at a watch party. I don't know if that's just me or not. I don't know. I feel like a watch party is just a party where they all want to cheer for the Panthers. I'm not going to stroll in there, in my Toronto Maple Leafs jersey, in the next round. I don't know.
I don't think you're wrong about that at all.
No, I don't think
I've seen an opposing fan at a watch party.
But I will tell you this again. You got to be careful and all that other things. Like for example, like I'm a Ranger fan, but I live in Massachusetts, so I don't go out of my way to go to TD Gardens with my Ranger gear on. But I will tell you this. Respect, especially in hockey, more than any other sport. As long as you're not acting like a knucklehead, it's okay. It tends to be okay. Now you're gonna get chirped, but that's part of hockey. If you understand that, that's hockey. Getting chirped doesn't mean that they don't like you. It's part of the business. But as long as you're not a knucklehead, it's all right. Though I used to go to a lot of Georgia games at in LA, and I didn't wear my Mets stuff either. It's just out of respect. I cheered, but I didn't go, "You stand good." Like, no, just be respectful. You're in enemy territory. Just enjoy the game.
Yes, enjoy the game.
Now you're well outnumbered as well.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you a funny story. I'm in Oakland, right, watching a Jet Oakland Raider game, right, and you hear all this bad stuff about Oakland Raiders, and I got to tell you, they're not the worst fans I've ever seen. You'd be surprised at who I'm going to tell you in a minute. So my friend tells this story because I tell him I went to the game. I went to a couple games in Oakland. He went, and he's a Bears fan, right? So he went to a game. It was the Rams against the Raiders in Oakland. And he had beer poured over his head. And he turns around. Turns around. And he looks at the guy. And he was so angry. But he turns out laughing. He goes, "I'm not a Rams fan. I'm a Bears fan." He goes, "Yeah, still no good." And they both had a good laugh. But anyway,
that's funny.
Continue.
That's good. Now I have to ask before we get into the actual arena experience and everything like that. I got to ask, food wise, do you typically make plans to eat there, to eat before you go? Do you have like a routine? Because I think that's part of it too. Like there's something about, I don't know. To me, there's something about eating wings in a that kind of environment. I feel like I'd be eating wings all day long. I don't know. That's just me. But what's your and Ashley's go-to for that? For the food
So
wise?
It was different last year. Last year, we're first-time season ticket holders. So if you're going to eat dinner in an arena 41 times in a 7-month period, you got to be very careful about that. So, during the season, we'll usually eat before we go down there. But if you're going one game every now and then, it doesn't hurt to eat at the arena. The food's decent. The burgers are good. The pizza's good. The beer's good. The beer's the beer. It's always the same. So it's obviously more expensive, yes, but it's the experience of being down there.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I don't want to change the topic here.
Okay. No, I was just going to ask, do you have to, are there limitations in terms of amount of people? Like, do you have to get there by a certain time, or can pretty much fit everybody? I mean, I'm assuming.
Are you still talking about the watch party, or are you still talking about the arena itself?
The watch party.
Oh, yeah. They pick venues that they know are big enough to get people into.
If you've never been to a watch party for whatever sport, do it. It's so much fun. I want to ask one thing because, I know you've been on. Thank you so much for being a supporter and being part of the show. And, Aaron Eckblad, what's going to happen with him? What do you think's going to happen? and your interpretation of what happened as a Panther fan. And maybe explain to Mike and some of the others that maybe don't know what happened exactly.
So Florida and Tampa are very heated rivals.
Yep.
And I'll probably take some heat for this because, you want to be 100% for your team. When I did see the replay, I saw him wind up and throw that forearm in Getzel's face. Yeah, the guy deserves it. Did it end up resulting in a 2-game suspension? Yes, it did. Was it warranted? Yeah, probably. Those two have no problem fighting each other, and that's the great thing about hockey is
exactly
it's the only game you can fight and get away with it.
Yep.
You might have to sit out. You might get an adult timeout for a little while.
Exactly. Again, we talk about the culture, right? What would not be okay is if, Tommy, I'm a tough guy, hits, the sixth, the third line, forward who is a devout pacifist. In hockey, it's two guys who think they're the biggest thing in town. They go against each other. It happens, and this is part of the game.
Yes, it is.
Yep. Now, so my next question, I think I know the answer, but those that may not know. So you mentioned you are a season ticket holder. So how does it work? So let's get to the arena itself and the current playoff play. But before we do, what happens if you're a season ticket holder in terms of availability of playoff tickets? Like how soon do they become available? And then is there a pool? How does it get determined who gets that? Is it a guarantee?
Yeah, do you want to explain that?
Ticket holder? Do you get first dibs? How does that work?
So Ashley's going to explain that one for you.
Yeah.
The same Ashley that it wasn't coming on camera? That same Ashley?
Loading ahead.
I'll come on camera halfway. Okay. So in that case, so we started getting the, probably a few months ago, hey, the emails are coming out. You're going to, start getting the option to basically buy your tickets for the playoffs. And so what ends up happening is that it's your same seats that you get. And there's no round robin, anything like that. It's if you have your tickets, you claim those tickets and you have first dibs on them. The big thing about the season ticket or being a season ticket holder, you have to buy every game all up front. Any home game that's there, you got to buy the whole enchilada. And then if they, in this case, we would have had one more home game. So we would have gotten that back, that purchase back. But yeah, you get the same seats that you had all season. You have the ability to, sell if you want to, things like that. But yeah, you got about a few months ahead of schedule or ahead of the time, but you have to pay it all up front. That's the hard part, is having a lot of it's doing everything all at once and trying to have that balance. Now that we know, because this was our first season being ticket holders, now that we know, I think we'll have a better plan for next season. But yeah, it's just a little different for us.
Well, you have to consider, by the time the email came out, there was the Eastern Division, and actually the Atlantic Division of the Eastern Conference. It was so tight, it went down to the last games between Florida, Toronto, Tampa. Anything could have happened in those last few games. Florida could have potentially gotten the number one spot in the division and had home ice the entire time, potentially. So you've got to be ready to buy 16 games, 4 games per round, all at once. And for us, that's times 3 because our daughter has a ticket as well.
And then, of course, if they don't make it past the first round, then obviously then all gets worked out. But that could take some time.
They'll reimburse you, yeah.
Yeah.
When I had my Jet season tickets, full season, and again, you're not talking about 16 games, right? But one thing I kind of liked what they did after the first, second year, and believe it or not, the Jets, it was a couple of years they were pretty good. You have to pay for all the playoffs, right? So not the Super Bowl, but you pay for the playoffs, and I kind of liked this for a while. They gave you an option to either refund or they put it toward next year, and I liked that because it was a nice down payment for the following year. So I would sometimes do that depending upon where I was fiscally. With my partial I have with the Red Sox now, they guarantee you just one ticket, per seat. So I have 2 seats. So they one ticket for one game in the first round, and then that's it because I only have a partial, which is fair.
Mm-hmm. I think I always I forget what movie it was, but I always just envisioned having season tickets somewhere and then having these parties with some friends. Like, all right, I got the Mets Braves series, and you'll take this series, and you take that series. At least there's plenty of outlets now for people to sell their ticket if they're not able to go, or if they're not able to find a friend. Like, I went to Cincinnati recently, and we wound up having an extra ticket that came because someone couldn't go with someone that was going with us. And so we were able to just bless somebody with no charge. But sometimes you do need the money for it because, it's a pricey ticket. And other times you're able to bless someone. But so explain what's that like in 2025 to have season tickets in terms of your routine and getting there. Do you got to make sure when you're there for season tickets, you still got to get there before tip off. Is it okay if you're a little bit late? Do you kind of have a preference? How does that work on a normal day for you, knowing that you're all going to be able to go to a game? Obviously, you're not able to do all 42 or 41, but what's that process like in terms of, getting there and stuff like that?
Honestly, I was actually surprised we made as many games this year as we did. I thought there was no way we'd make 42 games, and I think we made probably mid-30s worth.
Wow.
We missed 4 because we were on vacation that week. They had a game every other day, the 8 days that we were on vacation on a cruise. So we weren't even in the country for that time. So we missed those. But, we made almost every other game.
That's awesome because your work schedule's got to align and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
So
I think when you have the season tickets, you mentally think a little harder about getting off of work on time, making sure the family's ready, you eat dinner, you're dressed, you're ready to go. You're out the door by this time to beat the traffic, or you sit in traffic. You'd love to be there before opening face-off, but with the South Florida traffic down here, you can sit back in the crowd and just watch people flooding in still into the middle of the first period.
Yeah, definitely. Darren, I want to ask you before we ask our guest, who's the expert in this area, but how is it for you, Darren, looking ahead to the next series, assuming with Toronto? What are your thoughts? Honest thoughts here. I know we have a season ticket holder, super fan on as Mike for Panthers, but how do you see that series going? Because obviously Toronto is a very good team this season. So off the cuff, how do you see that series playing out?
Well, I am a traditionalist. I love the first 6, the original 6. However, Toronto is lucky that Boston's not in the playoffs this year because they always, as Michael said, they always lose to Boston. I don't think they get past Florida. I think Bobrovsky is just too good in net. I think you shut down Matthews, you shut down Toronto. In fact, I'm calling it Florida in 5.
Florida in 5. Okay. And we will get to that question in just a minute. Michael Clark, not to be confused with Mike Clark, has a question. So before we get to that question, I'll go ahead and say Florida in 6. Michael, what is your – or Mike, what is your
I'm gonna say Florida and I'm gonna say Florida in 6. I think it's gonna be a tough battle, Florida just like they were with Tampa. But I'm going to say Florida in 6.
Yeah, I think. But see, it's interesting you mentioned that because I think that playing Tampa in the first round was a wonderful thing for Florida. Because a couple of things: the last team to go back to back in the Stanley Cup champions was Tampa.
Lightning. Yes, it was.
Yeah. And Florida, it was tough, but they beat them, and 4-1. I think Florida will go back to back. I think Avalanche is going to be lucky to get out of their round. I mean, Dallas is playing over their head. I know Edmonton's got a little chip on their shoulder, but I think the Panthers will go back to back.
Yeah, because am I correct that Edmonton, did they start going down 0-2? Was that?
Yeah, then they won a few.
Yes, I think they lost the first 2. That they won the next 3. I think they played.
But personally, I just think that, and I'm not devaluing anybody on the ice, but I think that your goaltending is far superior than any of the teams they're going to face.
Okay. So we'll get to that question before we jump into some other stuff. So it says, how much do 3 playoff tickets cost for one game?
So we actually looked up our tickets on the SeatGeek app for Game 3, which was the first game back in Sunrise. Our seats were actually going for $115 a piece. That's what they were sitting at from SeatGeek.
Okay. So again, basically, if you plan ahead, now everything's going to always go up a few bucks, so now you can kind of know, okay, next year it's going to look like this, so you can kind of be ahead of the game if you do want to at least go to one. But like you said, you may just enjoy going to the watch parties, less busy and just as enjoyable. So, but it's good to know. So that's not as high as I thought. It's not, it's not what it should be. I mean, obviously, you think of it. It's not WWE prices right now. $40,000.
$40,000, yeah.
Ridiculous.
Now, granted, with that said, and the viewers don't know where we sit, but we are in the upper deck, and we're in row 9, so we're halfway up the upper deck. We're not in the back, we're not in the front, we're right in the middle of the section, and directly behind the shoot twice goal. So you can use that as a perspective. Yeah, want glass seats? You want glass seats? You're going to pay $1,000.
And you don't want. I'm sorry, I'm going to sound like that guy, but I have to be that guy. You want glass seats? Okay, that's great one time, but I got to tell you, you want to enjoy a game? Sit up top. Yeah. Sit up top. And why? Because you get to see everything. You get to see behind the puck. You get to see behind the play. You get to see the breakout. You get to see the anticipatory changes that are going to happen. Like, sitting up top is great. I sit up top for every sport that I watch.
But it depends on where you're at. It needs to be an arena built for hockey. I've got a really good friend that we took to a game this year. That he's from Pittsburgh and he's a huge Penguins fan. And he said back in the days in Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr and those guys, that old Pittsburgh arena was not made for hockey.
That's a whole different
the new
thing.
One, it is. So you can sit up high and see the whole game and enjoy it. It's not like going to you go to SoFi or you go to AT&T Stadium and you're in the 500 section. Hockey arenas aren't like that.
Nope.
So you are much closer to the game.
Hey, what does your friend think of Mike Sullivan leaving Pittsburgh?
I'm sure he's not happy about that.
I get one other nerdy question, then we can go on and talk about some of the other things. The Panthers bolstered their defense this year by acquiring people like Nate Schmidt, who came in and I thought fit like a glove. Tell me a little bit about your expectations with him at the beginning of the year to what he did for you this year.
So actually, we saw Nate Schmidt at one of the season ticket holder events back towards the beginning of the season, and he's the new guy there. He's playing around with the kids. He's in the bounce houses. He's having a good time. Oh yeah.
How great is that?
And honestly, because of my job, we do a lot of celebrity appearances with the Panthers at my location that I work at, a lot of autograph signings. And hockey players are just different than any other athlete.
Yep.
They're awesome people. They're humble. They're down to earth. They're just good people. Do they look tough on the ice? Do they fight? Sure they do. Would I pick a fight with them? No. But it's a different culture. The fans are different. The fans support them 100%. Even your worst teams, you have fan bases that support them no matter what.
Yep.
It's true. It's true. I don't know, Mike, if you heard, I mentioned this a couple times on the podcast. The TV show Shoresy, right? So they have a lot of ex-hockey players there, and they did this tour of the upper Northeast where they played a lot of retired players, and they were in Boston. And my family, I used to be the director of hockey operations for the Fresno Monsters in the UPHL. And long story short, one of the guys who played one of the gyms his son played on the Monsters. So we got to go behind the scenes, down underneath, meet some of the players. They're just the best. They're just the best. Just wonderful people.
Yeah, so we have a request in the chat for an Ashley appearance. Is that
Wow, look at this.
I only requested you.
That's all you get. Sorry.
Wow.
you say her name, she will appear. So I want to ask you, Mike, on one thing we love to do on the podcast, of course, is talk about the different ballparks, the different stadiums, the different arenas. So for someone that has not been to Amerant Bank Arena, what is that experience like for them? What is the must-dos? I can tell you one of the things that's not a hit right now is the Miami Heat. They just got swept in 4 games.
Embarrassing.
So apologize,
That was embarrassing, yeah.
Brian, if you're watching, I'm sorry about that. But if I'm going to that arena for the first time, Mike, what is a must-do for me? What must I try food-wise? And is there anything, any part of the arena that I must visit?
So food-wise, one of the best things we had were the steak poutine fries.
Okay. Yes, I've heard about
Amazing. Yes. A little heavy, but definitely worth it.
those. Yes.
A meal
Hello,
for
Joe
2
is joining
people.
us as well. So hello, Joe.
Yeah, you can make a meal out of these for 2 people. So, some of these, the portions are good. They really are. You know, yeah, it's stadium food, it's stadium prices, but they give you a good portion, so it's fair.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name of the I guess it's a bar, but it's in the very front of the arena when you first walk in. Right after the game, they have like this insane, like this party going on with music, a live band. Like that's where it's at after we win games. That's where it's at.
Like that.
Yeah, it's on the
If you win the
second
game,
level.
yeah. I can imagine if
Well, win or lose, they still
Okay.
go there, have a few drinks, live music. You know.
That's awesome. I think I've been there for a few different things. I've been there for I think 2 or 3 times. I don't know. It was never for a hockey. I still have yet to see a professional hockey game live, which is crazy. But I've been there for other stuff. I think it was a concert and a wrestling show, and there's probably a Raw. I probably went to a Raw there. I think that's probably what it was.
Yeah, we've done concerts there. We've done obviously hockey. You know, the venue is set up very, very well, and there's really not a. They say that, but it's cliche, but there's really not a bad seat in that house. There's not.
No, there's not. So I do want to, just for time wise, we got about 10, 15 minutes left before we end this here. So we will end with hockey questions. I do want to just at least touch base, because I mentioned at the start of the podcast that we are diehard Met fans, as everyone watching knows. So I want to just I know you've kind of taken a lot of hockey, so you're not sitting at home last night watching Mets Diamondbacks. You're at the watch party watching the Game 5. But
no, but
He was there. He had his phone watching the game.
I did actually.
Yes, there you go.
Yes,
Now,
I did.
Now it's funny, if you were on social media this afternoon, you would think the sky is falling because the Mets have lost 2 games in a row. Everyone's blowing them up. Season's over. Forget about it. Everything's now. There is a concern with the bullpen right now. Everyone that I enjoyed seeing is getting injured. The people that I'm like, oh crap, they're coming on the mound. Those are the guys that are still healthy, unfortunately. So that is a weak spot right now. Nimmo had a bit of the sickness after his 9 RBI performance, but let's not panic. It's 2 losses. They still have the best record in baseball. So I think we need to pump the brakes on the worry warts out there. Especially they got a nice series coming up in San Diego. They are playing pretty well on the road as well. So, but what do you like most of what you've seen this year? I mean, there's plenty to choose from. But what do you take away most? I'll start with you, Mike.
I think the atmosphere of it. You know, it's always fun being a Mets fan. You know, do we have our letdowns? Sure we do. You know, but right now we're riding that high. You know, when you can pull, was it 19 runs in a game?
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Who sees that? These are supposed to be professional ball players. And are we playing defense that night?
Yep.
You know,
That was
so you enjoy riding that high as a fan of whatever team you're a fan of when things like that happen.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, when those things happen, that's why some teams will tell you they would rather get blown out like that than lose. Like, I'll agree. I would rather lose 19-1 than lose 3-2, bases loaded, because usually what happens, as happened here, then the next day they go out and score 2 runs. You know, after they put up 19 runs, or it just happens that way. It's weird. But for me, and then Darren, I'm interested to see what you say. For me, what I'm enjoying the most is the defense. I know that's not popular because we have all these offensive juggernauts on the team that still aren't, quote unquote, performing. Soto hit 2 home runs today, so that's a great sign. But for me, it's the defense. I think back to game 1 of this series with Arizona, the play that Tyrone Taylor made in the outfield, there was that play, that ridiculous play that bounced off Vientos' glove, went to Lindor, threw it to first. Alonso's made great defensive plays. There's been a lot of putouts at home. So for me, defense wins championships, and the Mets have absolutely a great defense right now. So, but Darren, what is your biggest takeaway from this season?
The culture of this team is a positive one. It's very supportive of each other. The fans are electric. Soto was kind of scraping along, and everybody was cheering, yelling, no booing. And yeah, it's easy to do that when you got 20 wins and you have the best record in baseball. Am I worried a little bit about relief pitching? Yeah, but there's an easy fix. Here it is. Ready? Starters go longer.
There you go.
So you don't blow out your bullpen. It really is that simple. It's a simple game that's really hard to play. I've loved that game from my whole life. I love what Alonso is doing. He's been overall really good in on the field. He had that one throwing error, and Met fans, just relax. Yeah, just relax. They lost 2 in a row. You got 20 wins in the month of April. I mean, you're 10 games over 5. If you're 10 games over 500, you're doing okay. What you want to be is 15 to 20 games over 500 after May, and stay away from injuries. What I'm really concerned with, without jumping on the bandwagon too early, is our pitchers seem to pitch better with trends, and he gets clutch hits. I don't know. Alvarez got that nice home run, but
I know I wasn't the only one. Like, man,
he came out really short. He came up really short in the game 2 games ago when they could have won. But I'm not a big Alvarez guy right now.
I was the only one wanting Torrens to pinch hit last night. I know that wasn't going to happen, but I was secretly.
I did too.
hoping.
No, I did too.
Yeah.
He makes contact, and the guy was throwing sinkers, and people were chasing.
I do want to, and Joe mentioned here, Yankees lost 2 run-1 games to Orioles and won 1 game 15-3. Yeah, that happens. And then again, I want to throw up these crazy stats. No, that is not from MLB The Show, but that is Aaron Judge's current performance. That is ridiculous. Those numbers. It's crazy. And he also mentioned that defense and clutch hitting is essential to win the championship. So super true. And then I also want to share Mike as well. It says Alonso ripping it up, covering Soto's slow start is the biggest surprise. Next surprise, starting rotation, having the best ERA in the league. I was very much at peace when I saw that Peterson and Tyler McGill were starting and Frankie Montas was not. Frankie Montas, to me, speaks 4.93 ERA with a 5-12 record. I don't know why. Maybe he was good for Milwaukee, but I just don't really need him to come back. And if he does, it's kind of like a race right now, because if Sean Manaea comes back first, it'll be a 6-man rotation. Then Frankie needs to go because if Frankie takes anyone's spot in the rotation, then I'm going to have a problem with that.
Right.
I'd rather disagree. He can take place of our Jose 2-run Buto, or this season Jose 3-run Buto, as I like to call him. He's always given up 2 or 3 runs every single time he makes a relief appearance. But yeah. And Michael, you mentioned it. Alonso's ripping it up. He is nowhere where he was last year in terms of clutch hitting. He is hitting into the opposite side of the park. The power numbers are there, yes, but defense and just clutch base hitting and getting on base, seems like he's getting hit by the ball once every series at least. And he just doesn't even flinch. He's just, again, I got hit. Okay, shrugs it off, So, and then, and like you said, Torrens is a better hitter and defensive catcher than
I
With
agree.
Alvarez, we're like hoping that it's that 1 out of 25 at bats that he's going to hit a home run, but the other 24 are not good. That's what I see when I think of him. So, but so I want to ask you, Mike, like, is it how many games have you been able to really see this year? It's a little wonky. The Braves they've gotten a little bit better lately, but they're not what they used to be. But just like, do you see, is this Mets team going to be there at the end of the season? Like, could this be 1986 in 2025? Is it possible?
It's so hard to say. As Mets fans, we're used to being let down, since '86. But there's always that chance. You got to look at the positive, and when you're a fan of a team, you always look at the positive. Every year is your year, until it's not. We got to stay healthy. You got to keep producing. And you and I, we met on the ball field. We coached on the ball field. Baseball has been our lives since we were kids. We know how this game works. So you have to have all aspects of it and maintain it all season long, and it's a long season.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. And Joe thinks that the Mets and Philly compete for the division.
Yep.
The Mets are it's a roller coaster season. We're not going to keep up this pace all year as much as I'd love to believe it. And there's going to be a time when Philly wins 10 out of 12, the Mets lose 7 out of 10. Like, it's bound to happen. So just win as much as we can now. And the Braves pitching is weak. They lost some guys.
I was going to say I'm actually one of the most surprises for me is the abysmal performance of the Braves this year.
Yeah. So, and then Michael says, let's get through June 1st. I'll let you know. Super early, but I think going into the season, we're like, okay, it's Dodgers and everybody else. And I think we're like, okay, could be the Mets, but could be the Phillies, but could be the Giants, but could be the Padres, but could be the Cubs. So it's good. There's a lot of good teams. But again, we're 1 month in. Now the Colorado Rockies, that's just a whole nother story. But did either of you get a chance to see, and then I'm going to ask Darren to ask a final question as we start wrapping up things here. But did you guys happen to see that play with the Blue Jays outfielder the other night? How incredible.
That was amazing. That was amazing.
Catch of the year.
Yes, that was
he better get an ESPY for that.
He's got to. I mean, he clearly meant to do that. That was incredible. So, Darren, I'm going to pass the ball to you here for a final question for Mike as we wrap things up here. Whether it be on the Panther front or the Met front, what do you got for us?
A couple of things. First of all, if you think about it, right? That play, and shame on me for not knowing that player's name with Toronto. That shows you, and like I tell people, oh, he's a bum. This one's this one's that. This guy, did you see the reflexes on this person? The attention, the detail, the concentration. That's why you've heard Ron Darling say it a million times. The guy that the Twitterverse is calling a scrub is the best player you'll ever see. I was so amazed at that play and the level of he stumbled, he fell, and just had what reflexes. But Mike, let me ask you this question. If you were the commissioner of baseball, what rule would you bring back, and what might you change in the game, and what rule would you change?
Ooh. As much as I didn't like it coming into being introduced into baseball, this replay, look what it did for the umpire that made a bad call and blew a perfect game.
Yep.
You could overturn an umpire's call, especially if it's a bad call. And that wasn't just bad. That was the worst anybody would ever see.
That was horrible.
Yeah.
Well, That was the worst thing. Second worst was the triple play where the ball hit the ground against the Mets the other day. But that's neither here nor there. But no, that miss perfect game because the miss that was just terrible.
Really?
Yeah.
How about you, Mike? Same question.
For me?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Not sure. I have to, I'm not. And I'm going to pass to our guest. Then come back to me. Pass to our guest.
All right. Well, he had that. Any other thing you want to add there, Mike? Like ones that you might want to bring back, this or that? Or something that you would implement?
Nothing I can think off the top of my head. I'm not as versed in the MLB rule book as others are.
Joe hit it right on the head. That whole ghost runner nonsense, hate it.
Yeah, I think
that's weird. Yeah.
I think I'm trying to think outside the box, but I think that's it. I think the ghost runner nonsense. I know that I'm not the one sitting in the stadium that has to sit through 14 innings, but
no, you don't have to. You can leave. You can leave. Where are you going? Where are you going? Exactly. To macaroni and cheese and yelling at your wife? I mean, what are you doing? Where are you going?
Like, I just hate seeing F10. Yeah. It's always 10 innings all the time. So I
got no problem with 17-inning games. Give me 25 minutes. You got to earn it. No, there's no juice box awards. Another thing I don't like you can only throw over twice. What is that? I mean, where are you going? Play the game. Like I was against the pitch clock. Now I like it a lot. I get that. But if you can pick a guy off. You shouldn't be penalized for trying to pick a person off. You're just playing catch with the first baseman. I mean, come on. But another thing that I would do, if I was the commissioner of baseball, I would make it mandatory that every team during the summer has one traditional doubleheader on the weekend. So you can bring your kids, you can kind of have that whole experience. Why not? Enough with the City Connect, future jerseys. How about we give people some free baseball? How about, 2 games, instead of this day-night doubleheader nonsense? The traditional doubleheader was always a wonderful thing.
Was the way to go.
Yep.
Yeah. I see both sides of it. I'm a diehard, but I get it too. If you need to go, then you can go. I do understand Mike's point, like seeing guys like Rosario pitch, what it looked like a 42-mile-an-hour knuckleball, whatever the heck it was. But sometimes it's kind of funny to see that every once in a while. I enjoy it. Like I remember when he was on the Rays, Phillips. He was the most smiley guy you're ever going to see, and just seeing him pitch and have the time of his life out there, that was super cool. So my last question for you, Mike, let me go back to hockey for my final question, then we'll wrap things up here. So obviously you're a Panther guy and things like that, but there's some other news coming out there in terms of the NHL. And of course, I'm talking about the Utah Hockey Club. And so I wasn't sure if you got to see this, but are you okay if you are now, do you like the name Utah Hockey Club, or are you a fan of the Utah Mammoth? Because right now it looks like the Utah Mammoth is apparently was leaked that's going to be the name for the Utah Hockey Club. But are you a fan of the name?
No, neither. I think Utah Hockey Club. What do they think? They're soccer club? It's weird. It's not needed. Every team has their own mascot, whether you're a leaf or an animal or something, or a knight. They have such good mascots. And a mammoth? It's as bad as the Oakland A's with an elephant balancing on a baseball.
100%.
I don't get where Utah's going with this.
Bonus question. You ready? Since you kind of brought it up. Okay. Who do the Panthers play in this next round?
Well, it's going to be tough. Like I said, it's going to be a tough game if they got to face Toronto.
Okay. Now, they play Toronto Maple who? The Toronto
Maple Leafs.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
when I grew up and went to school, and I could be wrong because God knows I'm old and decrepit, and who knows, but I always thought that Leafs, 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 isn't it Leaves?
It's a Canadian thing, I think.
Leaf, yeah. And again, it's great. Canadians, but not Canadians. IEN, not the same thing, kind of different. I mean, come on. Leafs. Am I wrong?
Yep. Yeah, and it looks like as of right now, there's 2 minutes, 30 seconds left away from Toronto winning that series, but it is still a 1-goal game. And I mean, we saw in the Florida Panthers game the other night, they scored 3 goals in like 4.5 minutes. So why not? So anything could happen. Watch till the end. But it does look like it's going to be Toronto. So, but thank you guys. I can't believe it's been an hour already. That's insane to me. But we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you so much for Mike for jumping on. We'll definitely have you back, and we'll hopefully we'll celebrate another Panthers back-to-back championship. We'll definitely have you back on because it seems like that's going to be, in my opinion, what's going to happen. But thanks, Ashley's floating head, for coming in a few times on the podcast as well. And Darren, as always, a blast. Again, let me just show you guys real quick. This coming Sunday, we are going to have Dash Davis on. We're going to hear his testimony. Super excited for that. And then a week from tonight, the Incline Dodgers podcast. They will be on the show with us, and we'll talk all things Dodgers baseball. So tune in for that, and some exciting things coming along the way too. So just keep an eye out for all the things to come. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the AroundTheBallpark.com website soon to launch as well. So until next time, guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you around the ballpark. Bye, guys.